Welcome to episode 445 of the Tilehurst podcast, possibly the greatest show of the year. Not only are we going to review two positive games in terms of results, but we're also going to talk about the awards of 2025, one of the most tumultuous seasons, or years rather, of our club's history. Lots to talk about, lots of awards to give out, and extra special treat, festive treat if you like, is we have two podcast host alumni. Am I saying that right, Ross? Is it alumni or
I
alumni?
think, I just always go with alums, and then you can't get wrong,
Alums.
alums.
All right.
But our elders and our forebearers and our harbingers, let's call them that, shall we?
What an introduction. Well, I was gonna go alphabetically, but I don't want anyone to know Wim's first name, so we're gonna go Marc first of all. Marc Mayo. Regular listeners and viewers will know Marc very, very well. We actually took over from you, so good that you had two people to replace you rather than one. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me back through the back door for the Tilehurst equivalent of the Oscars and defining me as a harbinger as well. I've been called a lot of things on social media over my time. Harbinger. This might be the first time.
Oh, well, just if you're leading people to things, and today you're leading us to the awards, so it seemed appropriate.
And of course, we have Wim, who has no other name other than Wim, founder of this entire shebang, basically. Like, this is the house that Wim built. We always say it, almost pretty much every other episode we say that. I can see some Lego behind you. Is that a new thing from Father Christmas, or is that just a consistent?
No, that is my wife's vocation.
It's not yours.
No. So yeah.
Wow.
But I proudly have it displayed in the background. I have built some of it, but no.
Do you guys know, speaking of Lego, do you guys know what the "this is fine" meme is, where it's a dog in a flaming room and he's holding a cup of tea and everything? It's a great meme, one of my favorites. My biggest belly laugh throughout this entire holiday period has been when my wife said to me, "I'm just getting you a little present this year, and we'll go to the cooking shop or whatever," and she hands me a Lego set of the "this is fine"
That's amazing.
meme. Incredible. My best belly
cool.
laugh. Yeah, best belly laugh.
That's amazing. Well, it's great to be back on. I can't help but feel like this is the equivalent of you've gone to visit your relatives for Christmas. You pitched up to mine and Mark's abode and just checking in on us in the retirement home,
The podcast nursing
yeah,
home.
just checking that we're all right.
Yeah. Well, look, it's great to have you both on. Really, really excited. We're going to do things a little bit differently for this episode. So we're going to do whatever a normal podcast is, in inverted commas. We're going to review the win against Plymouth. We're going to talk about last night against Peterborough, the draw there. And then we're going to flip it quite literally, and Wim and Marc are going to take over, and they're going to deliver the awards ceremony. And we're just going to be guests on our own show, if that makes sense. So really looking forward to this one. Really, really looking forward to this. Should be a cracker. Before we go into any more detail, massive thanks as always to Uncle Waldy, Sugar Waldy as we like to call him in the group chat.
Father Waldy at this time of the year, Saint Waldy, whatever you want to call him.
Father Christmas Waldy, whatever.
Yeah.
And ZC Said Films, who proudly sponsor this pod and will hopefully continue to do that moving forward. And of course, the Amazons, who have loaned us their smash hit single, My Blood. Massive year for them, as we said on the previous pod. So hopefully they've had a good Christmas and will enjoy whatever they're up to in the new year. I don't think they're going down the turtle just yet, but maybe that's possible in the new year.
I hope Matt's mum had a good Christmas. She likes going down the Reading games. I hope she's had a good time watching Liam's boys, and I hope she's had a lovely Christmas.
Yeah. We're going to get into it. Episode 445, the recap, starting with a visit to Plymouth. Right, welcome to our mega blockbuster Oscars, if you like, Oscars ceremony of the TTE podcast.
The Roscars.
The Roscars, yeah, nice touch.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to start with Plymouth. We're going to go back to Boxing Day, a belated present for us all. 4-1 win, absolutely bulldozed our way into a 3-0 lead, and it's quite funny being a Reading fan, as most people will listen to this will testify. Never felt like we were going to win the game at 3-0 with a man advantage as well. We'll go to you first, Mark. You were there. What was the mood like in the away end when the third goal went in quick succession?
The mood was utter jubilation, as you can imagine. I mean, I went with my wife for this game, and she's been to about 3 away games over the years she's been with me, which included a last minute winner at Sheffield United, us getting already relegated at Huddersfield. So 2 quite different away games, and then this one, 3-0 up in 20 minutes. And I turned to her and I said, I've never seen this before. This is not, in all my years of going to Reading games, I've never seen us go 3-0 up away from home inside 20 minutes. And I mean, obviously, we were benefited massively from the player that got sent off for Plymouth. Joe Walls was obviously so huge for them. So that really opened up the game. And, they collapsed. We took a couple of chances. We could have had more. I think that's the weird thing about this game, is we were the victims of our own success, from the fans' perspective anyway, because it just felt like we could have made it 4, we could have made it 5 or whatever. But as soon as we started sitting in and being comfortable with it, the fans became less comfortable. And it just felt like one of those strange games where we had set the bar so high in those first 20 minutes that almost anything other than the kind of 5-0 victory was going to be a disappointment. And obviously we're Reading in League One. We're not going to just walk this game 5-0. And Plymouth were on very good form going into it. And, they score a lot of goals. They're incredibly ropey, but that sounds just like us, doesn't it? So they're not alone in that. And Reading fans did become quite irate at points in the second half in particular, because we didn't play particularly well for a lot of that game. But, with that 3-0 lead, there was obviously the penalty save that basically won us the game at that point. I do think we probably would have drawn it had we let that go in. But Marriott getting the 4th completely killed it with 10 minutes to go, and from then it was a cruise. But it was weird how, despite being 3-0 up after 20 minutes, it was only after getting that 4-1 that it became an actual cruise to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit topsy-turvy in that second half. They got it back to 3-1, and then obviously we gave away a penalty, which Joel Pereira saved, which was a really good job, because at that point you're thinking 3-2, a little bit of time left on the clock. Like you said, we could have ended up drawing it, or even worse, losing the game to a 10-man Plymouth, which would have been an absolute disaster, having been 3-0 up very, very early on in the game.
Can I ask you guys, while we're talking about the early game, do you think, having seen the replay, that the rules challenge is a penalty and a red card? Because my take on it was that there was a red card offence committed by Plymouth about a minute before, or 5 minutes before, that went as a yellow for the challenge. I think it was on Yeardom down the line. And then
it was on Randall Williams, because that's the one that injured him for the Posh game.
Yeah, exactly, on Randall Williams. I thought that was a red card, but it didn't get called. But then I thought that the Derek Williams, let's call it a backwards dive, was quite spectacular. And am I being a little bit cruel to him?
Half. Again, it's one of those ones where, to sit on the fence here and channel my inner Johnny Williams, sitting on the fence completely, you see it going either way. We've had more than enough not go our way over the past few years, so I'm taking it any day of the week.
Yeah. We went something like a year without a penalty, I think, at one point, and now we've had 3 at least already this season, which is 2 of them coming from Ben's favourite, Daniel Chirwa, who, so Sim sent a message at the end of the game saying that it could have ended like 3-3 or even like 4-3 to Plymouth. And I was kind of like, I see what you mean, but I think it would have ended like 6-4 to Reading if we're in that sort of territory, because Daniel Chirwa has thrown his foot over 2 balls that just required tap-ins and missed those. There was another one in the game as well. So I think that we are consistently now able to attack and be dangerous in the attack, and that's really exciting.
Well, I think we talked a lot about Special K, as you like to call him, Ross, but also Lewis Wing. Like, you and Bobbins did a pod where you basically talked about Lewis Wing for, by all accounts, for most of the episode. And he had an absolute stonker of a game on Boxing Day against Plymouth, scoring 2 goals. Probably could have had more. To be honest, I thought the finishing generally across the team was not good at all. And go back to what Mark said earlier about winning sort of 5 or 6 to nil. That was kind of the expectation at that point, really. But some of the finishing was so dreadful. Particularly from your mate Dan. I mean, let's talk about Lewis Wing a little bit in terms of that impact, because we've not seen a game like that from him for a long time, have we, Ross?
No, we haven't. And I think that the kind of play where he was a little bit further forward for the second goal, and he was able to jump onto, I think, Mumbu, I can't remember his name, but to get into the box and get that shot was really good to see. I definitely think that for this week that we've had, Wings had, I would say, it looks like one good game and one bad game. I think they're still relatively. Let's be honest, Wing looked kind of tired to me against Peterborough yesterday, but I think a lot of that was down to the fact that he was dealing with a midfield that had an extra man in it compared to him and Savage for much of the game. In this game, obviously, as you said, Rules being pulled out of that lineup really early in the game, I think just allowed Wing to be the person who took control and put his stamp on the game. And look, it's only recently, and there's that one game, that one pod, like you said, with Bobbins, where we're like, drop him, blast him into the sun or whatever. But before that, it was always like, no, let's find a way to keep Wing moving in this team. And I think the one thing that he was able to do, because there wasn't, Rules or that extra pressure on him in the midfield in this Plymouth game, was get higher up the field. And so that goal that he scored, where he's won the ball himself and then continued on from there, he's pretty high up there. He's just behind the box, as Plymouth are trying to clear out. So it's, again, that's kind of where we've said before we'd like to see Wing more often. I think that the sort of flat 3 that they use sometimes now, where we have Fraser go in there towards the end of the game and they play with Wing in the middle often, and then Savage and silly hands up again. And then we end up playing with Fraser on the right side. I do think that helps Wing a little bit, just to have a bit more help around him. But I think a lot of it now, with the age that he is, comes down to how much is he being asked to do physically, and then what can he do on top of that, with his obvious skill.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that was starting to grumble a bit like Bobbins about Wing, thinking, is it time to give him a rest? Is it time we rotate him? But again, you go back, yes, stats can lie, but he's already got 7 goals and 4 assists in League One this season. And if you compare that to last season, and everyone agrees he had a fantastic year last year, 9 goals, 6 assists. So, he's on pace for double-digit goals and nearly double-digit assists. Yeah, taking penalties is going to help you with that. But that output is something that is just immeasurable. And again, you go through the who scored ratings, again, something flawed, but he's only about a tenth 0.10 behind his kind of average rating from last year. So yes, maybe that's being propped up by a couple of special kind of performances this season, but he is so vital, and you need the captain to be kind of leading from the front. And yes, some captains are all effort, running, sprinting everywhere and diving into tackles, and other captains are just leading by example, scoring when they really need to, delivering that key pass. And it's great to see Wing just over these last couple of weeks doing so, and getting that a bit further up the pitch as well, where we know he's so dangerous, and he's not just penned in, sitting in a line with Powdy and Williams at the back. It's been so good to see him in those areas where he can be more dangerous.
If I can just jump in as well, and if you don't mind me segueing into the Peterborough game, feel like I got my presenter hat on already doing that.
Yeah.
The one player that I think Ross, I agree with you talking about Wing being higher up, and as we saw for the 4th goal at Plymouth as well, being in those positions to pick out the passes. And Doyle is a good runner in front of him, but maybe you don't necessarily need a midfielder like that. You need almost a second striker or wingers who do a bit more than the wingers we have at the moment, certainly from both sides, to have those passes he can pick. But I think the player that maybe can unlock him is Renamotta. Is that if you put him and Savage and Wing as the 3-man midfield and have Wing as the elevated player, then you have certainly 1, if not 2, depending on whether you consider Savage a massive runner. But Renamotta is that box-to-box runner. He is that player who can mop up the yards and do the donkey work. And maybe he's the key that we need. And I think for the Peterborough game, the way that it unfolded, stats-wise, basically the exact opposite of the Plymouth game was Rinovosa if he would have played in last night's game, then he might have been the player to ease that pressure and just to do those hard yards that we are lacking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about Rinomota and, last pod and what on earth is going on there, really. He's clearly nowhere near the, being able to start games, let alone sort of, being involved in the group itself, really. So, there's obviously things going on there. He's withdrawn from the African Nations Cup with Zimbabwe, not heading there now. So there's obviously a number of things at play that we're not aware of as fans. I would agree. I mean, I'm not sold on Kamari Doyle at all. I know he scored obviously in the win against Plymouth, but generally speaking, I don't know what he offers really, particularly moving forward up the pitch in transition. So, and that was evident, as you said, Mark, around Peterborough, which we had last night, which, from my point of view, was an incredibly stressful 60, 70 minutes after we scored the goal, just to watch us kind of absorb all this pressure and the 18 plus shots or whatever that Peterborough put in against us. We're looking at this as a block of games in terms of Luton, Plymouth and Peterborough and having 7 points, which, before we started against Luton, you would have taken, I'm sure all four of us would have said, yes, please, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. Why then are we still not completely convinced by Liam Ball, by what is going on the pitch, by the overall mood of the group of players that we've got currently? Why are we still not negative, although Ross said some things that I'm sure he now regrets in the cold light of day last night towards me in the group chat. But, why Wim, are we not, absolutely buzzing and talking about the playoffs and, being really progressive with our views on how the club is on the pitch at the moment?
I think because you look at the flow of all three games, and the flow of all three games has been Reading have started strongly, and in each game they've let the opposition just come back into it and take control, and that goes right back to the Carlisle game, which spoiler alert gets a mention in the awards later. Luton 2-0 lead, blow it to 2-2. Yes, Kelvin, great finish. We sneak the win. Plymouth as well. We have the benefit of facing 10 men for 78 plus minutes. Go 3-0 up, and they are a penalty save away from being back in the game at 3-2, and they've not shut the door. And Peterborough again getting themselves into a great position in the second half. It's the Alamo, and we're hanging on desperately. Again, Joel making some fantastic saves to keep us in the game. So there's not that feeling of control. And to be fair to him, Liam said that after the Carlisle game, and in the early interviews I saw with him, he was very concerned about Reading's game management, about their mentality and about their fitness. This squad haven't got that ruthlessness. There is not that confidence when you're watching them that, okay, they're going to seal this out. And again, you talk about squad options and stuff like that, and what we thought was going to be Reading's real strength going into the season. Look at the bench. It's full of seasoned pros, experienced, exciting young players. Every time I look at the bench now, there are very few players that I'm like, they need to come on now. They will make a difference in this game if they come on. I look at someone like Liam Fraser, who I thought made a pretty decent start. He's obviously been dealing with injuries, but he's brought on for the closing 3 or 4 minutes. I know he got about 20 last night against Peterborough, but he's not coming in changing the game. Rinomota, as discussed, just hasn't seemed to work out so far. Randall Williams has done pretty well, but the Marco Manis of this world just haven't done anything. So there's not that confidence from me, especially at the moment, that this team, over 95 minutes, however long they have to do it, will get the job done. But the important caveat to all of that is this week they have got the job done. And the old cliche is, the sign of a good side is ones that get it done even when they're not, playing the best. So look, I'd rather be on the end of sneaking wins like we did against Luton, or even hanging, if you want to say we hung on at times against Plymouth. The thing is we won 4-1 and we got a point at Peterborough, who were in good form as well. So there's plenty of positives, but that nagging pessimistic Reading fan feeling of it's not quite going to plan.
Well, I mean, look, discipline doesn't go on holiday, does it? And the whole point is that we've shown in recent weeks, Ross, that actually we've been a lot harder to beat under Liam. What what is the main change for that, particularly over the last 2 games where, you know, picked up 4 points, respectable 4 points if you look at it on paper, but performance-wise maybe not so much. What has been the big change in terms of Liam making us, you know, harder to beat?
I think that we're able to react a little bit more to what the opposition are doing, recognize what the opposition are doing, and then produce a reaction to it. So, for instance, last night, you probably noticed that compared to the previous Peterborough performance, which obviously we lost, but we produced quite a bit more XG over that game. I'm going to say that 2 more times today, don't worry. But we were better, I thought, especially in the first half against Peterborough at home a few weeks ago than we were in this particular game. I thought we struggled to get to grips with this one for a long time. And like I said, we switched to this sort of back 3, back 5 with a more flat back 3. And I thought that was kind of like what eventually helped us to get a little bit further up the field. And even though I don't think we necessarily managed to push forward and go looking for the win, I think that we were able to push them just a little bit further away from our goal in the last 10 minutes or so. I thought Richie coming on as well was actually kind of useful, moving into the space that Kamari Doyle sometimes operates within. So I think that there is that like ability to actually react to or recognize and react to what the opposition are doing. I do sometimes worry that this or that Liam's style is a little bit too reactive. You know, the Bradford game, I think, got away from us partially because we went to this sort of like, you know, man for man back 5 sort of setup, and we just got killed in the spaces in between our wing backs and the center backs. So I think that, you know, look, I don't think it's perfect, but I think that Liam is a little bit better at reacting. But completely away from Liam, the thing that I wrote down this week as we were talking, and it was already kind of on my mind, this is the Pereira week for me. He's got the penalty save in there, and then he was really, really good last night against Peterborough as well. He had a save. He had one of those saves where it looks very early in the second half last night from a header where it looks like it's past him already and he's almost come back and ripped the ball back out of the net. You know, the ball had been hit at him so hard. And I think that he started this season, I think Noel got a little bit unlucky, I will say, because I think that Pereira's worst patch of form since he came into the squad came during that early season this year, basically, and that coincided with Noel not having enough going forward, so Reading were starting to lose a few more or draw a few more like 1-goal games and things like that. Pereira's been really good in the last month, and this week really kind of kicked on. And just to bring up these XG numbers, XG on target, Pereira has now, you know, last year I talked about how he basically kept 9 goals out last year, which was exceptional. He had been sort of lagging right on the line or right behind. He is now like about a goal above. So this last week has pushed him up and above. I think he got like 1.5 saved last night alone. So anyway,
I was going to say, he must have kept about 6 out last night.
He kept
Honestly,
a lot out.
ridiculous.
He kept a lot out. Can I drop my last expected thing on you guys now?
Please, I love it. Yeah, I'd love you to.
I know you want it gone, but I'm actually quite positive about Liam. I think if you take the really nasty week from hell out of it, I think overall things are moving in the right direction. I don't love the January focus because I think that Liam himself has shown that you can solve problems on the pitch, you know, not necessarily in the transfer window, but of course you can solve problems in the transfer window as well. But my point is, for expected points, so how many points that you would expect to have based on the game's unexpected goals, Reading were beating that in the Noel Hunt era. They were getting lots of, you know, long-range screamers and things like that would help them to beat it, and they were in the relegation zone on expected points under Noel. They are now pretty much smack bang exactly where they are in the league. So right around mid-table, you know, sitting about exactly where they'd be expected to be. So for me, that speaks to that kind of like consistent successes that we talked about under Noel, wanting to get to a place whereby the team could at least produce, you know, moves that would more consistently lead to shots, lead to chances, and lead to goals and things like that. So, yeah, I guess I just wanted to get all of those out of the way for you now, so they were done. But I'm quite positive about the Liam era so far, even if I don't think it's been some rocket ship to Mars, you know, that we wanted it to be.
The power of positivity is just so positive.
Exactly.
Do you know what? Do you know what we're doing as well? And I don't know if your stats can get into this, but we're swapping the teams round when we're away from home at start of the game, aren't we? We're attacking our away fans for the first half, which Richardson said after Plymouth was a deliberate tactic. And what have we scored? 4 goals in the first half of the 2 games since then. So it's all in the stock. It's all in the plan, isn't it?
Mark, we finished the calendar year in 10th. And, given how we started the season, that's probably a pretty good return. How desperate we were in the early days of this 25-26 season. Do you think we have enough currently within the squad to push, consistently push for a playoff place? Are we kind of about where we should be? Should we be looking lower? Whereabouts at this point, finishing 10th in the calendar year, do you think we will finish? And I know that's a really tough question to end this particular segment.
No, it's actually really simple because we are about the 10th best team in the league. The table is incredibly congested at the moment, and it's been shared on social media loads of times today. 3 points from us to the 21st or whatever it is, and then 8 to 7th. So it's I think it's about right. And if the season was to carry on, I think we would, without us making any signings, without any teams being kind of shaken around in January like they will get naturally, we would finish about 10th, and that'd be justified because the thing that we don't do is we don't score many goals at home. And that's what we have to change in January. We scored fewer goals at home than Mansfield, Rotherham, Barnsley, like loads of teams that are kind of in that mix around us. But while that is going to remain the case, we won't get promoted. And in January, we will have to sign probably 2, maybe more attackers, whether it's an attacking mid, winger, striker, whatever. But if we don't do that, then I don't think we'll go up there.
It's very tricky, isn't it? That table is absurd. I was talking to someone who one of the Stockport County podcasts today ahead of our game against them on Sunday, and he was just saying exactly the same thing. Up the top end, it's incredibly difficult to pick out anyone who's going to go up as champions, let alone second and third through the playoffs. So it's all to play for. And as Ross said, this talk of January is either going to be spectacular, where have we had that before, or a complete disaster given who we bring in. So look, all to play for in the second half of the season. Burton Albion coming up on Thursday. If you're losing track of the days, that's the 1st of January. And then we've got Stockport at home a couple of days later on the 4th, on the Sunday. So, yes, what's that? 8 games in a week. There you go. Do the maths there. We're gonna round off this recap with a thank you very much for listening to us in 2025. We're not going just yet, but we're literally phically handing over to Marc and Wimb for the awards. The what? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say we're not going for a while. Don't worry, you know us. No. Look down at the duration checker on your thing. You'll see we've got about another 1 to 2 of these left in us.
Yeah, whoever's listening to this you've got quite a long way to go on your run if you're ending this doing this for the podcast.
Exactly right. But we're officially handing over to these guys for the next segment. Let's do it. Let's do the awards. We ready? Are we up for it?
We are ready.
I'm ready. I'm in my glitzy ball gown and I'm here to stay.
Done your hair, all sorts.
I've done my hair.
We will take a short break and we'll be back with Marc and Wimb.
Right, welcome back. It is awards time. This is for the first time that I've hosted this for a long time. But the awards started in 2013, Mark. And I believe, memory serves, did you attend the first one? We used to do these at the Spread Eagle, a stone's throw from Elm Park. And the first awards was blighted by Christmas music going on in the background and all sorts. But it's great to be back hosting the awards. We've got a number of categories. We've got Player of the Year, the Most Improved Player, the Hal Robson Kanu Underachiever Award, the Golden Moment, the Worst Moment, Comedy Moment, the Most Missed Award, and the Breakout Prediction. So we will go through, we'll start with the very best. We'll start, Mark, with the Player of the Year. Run us through the alumni for this award.
Yeah, this I remember doing this part of the show, and it became a longer and longer part of the show every year, simply through running through memory lane. But yeah, let's do it then. So your previous winners for Player of the Year, and if you're long in the tooth like myself, then some of these names you'll recognise and fond memories. If you maybe only picked up the podcast or started supporting Reading in the last couple of years, then boy, are you about to hear some names that you have forgotten and have never heard of. So the previous winners of Player of the Year, 2013, we started with Alex McCarthy, Jordan Abita in 2014, Ollie Norwood in 2015 of current Stockport League One fame, Ali Al-Habsi 2016, Liam Moore 2017, John Daddy Bodvarsson in 2018, particular vintage year that, Ovia Jaria 2019, Michael Morrison in 2020, which I actually thought was a relatively okay year for the team, but looking at Player of the Year, you question that. John Swift, 2021, Tom Ince, 2022. We don't have 2023 because we haven't gone back and listened to it, so apologies about
Certain
that.
hosts didn't write it down. I'm not going to name any names. We'll just call
it was their
them,
first year. It's hard.
E&R.
It's hard writing. Yeah, it's hard writing words
I don't know
down, isn't it?
What's a documents folder?
Well, who would it have been in 2023? Trying to think. We got relegated that year, didn't we? So, or was it our first year in League One? They're both bad year. Anyway,
I think we just felt there was nothing worth celebrating.
I probably went for Tyler Bindon. Like, he had just come into my life. It was fresh.
Presumably, there was no Player of the Year. And then 2024 was Lewis Wing, my lord. So, Wim, please talk us through the. We've had some nominations filed in from our Tilehurst End pals. So do you want to talk us through those?
We have indeed. Sim and Adam have sent in their nominations as well. And again, just to clarify, so this is for a calendar year. So this is for the whole of 2025.
It's the Ballon d'Or of RG2.
Exactly. Exactly. So Sim has nominated Joel Pereira, as has Adam. And Ross, I get the feeling you might be adding Joel to that list.
I am indeed adding to the Joel Pereira cause within the nomination. I think I did this on the pod not that long ago. I think I called him my player of the season as well last year. So I've sung his praises before, but I can do so again if you'd like.
Go for it.
Yeah, Joel Pereira is the best Reading keeper since enter whoever you like here, really. I know, some people love Ali Al-Habsi, as do I. Some people love Alex McCarthy, as do I. Some people love Adam Federici, as do I. I still do the sidekick thing that Adam Federici used to do when I play in goal, because that's the indelible mark that Adam Federici left on me. And I think that a good goalkeeper really can leave that mark on you as a memory of your club, because what's the most exciting thing you see other than the goals? It's probably the crazy saves where a player gets, where the goalie gets up into the top corner or something like that. Pereira is just exceptional in many ways. This year it became clear to me that he has a weak side. He's a little bit weaker going to his left, and yet has really cleaned that up as the year's gone on as well. You can kind of see he has this kind of like more straggly form if he's going to his left, but he's still getting out there. He's still getting wide, and going to his right, he's just exceptional. So yeah, he's been the player that has given Reading the platform to do what they've done, despite 2025 being the last of one of these kind of difficult years for the club. And I don't think if David Button was still still the number one keeper for Reading, I think we're in the relegation zone right now. And I don't think that last year would have gone quite as well. So for me, it's got to be Joel Pereira.
If you say David Button's name 3 times, he might appear in the lineup, so just be careful about that.
He plays for one of the best teams in the Championship, I've allegedly been told.
Yeah, it's just like Scott Carson is a Champions League winner. Ben, are you going to if you vote for Pereira, he wins the award, or are you going to throw a spanner into the works?
Yeah, I mean, it would be really childish to vote for Charlie Savage and really stick my heels in. Joel Pereira, isn't it? Ross has talked a lot about his skills there. What I really like is the histrionics isn't the right word, but like he celebrates saves like they're goals, and sometimes you need that in players. Like you that feeds off. That spreads to players in front of him. The crowd feed off it. He's a character, but he's also a really nice guy, and we would be a worse team without him. People talk about his kicking all they want. When he's pulling off saves like he did last night, it doesn't matter. He could kick it into the sidelines every single game if he wants to, every single time he's got the ball, because he just adds so much to that team. He's an absolute rock for us. And I was trying to think when Ross said he's the best keeper since, and we've been blessed over the years. But if those people are the older generation, I grew up in an era where Shaka Hislop was the main man. Marcus Hanneman, even Phil Whitehead was a good goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? Like we've had some good goalkeepers over the years, and we're just blessed to have him. He's easily the best goalkeeper in League One, and I would anticipate that he will go on to a bigger club in the near future. So it was a great bit of business that they tied him down to a longer contract in the summer. For me, categorically, he's our player of the year for sure.
Yeah, Joel gets my vote as well. You're mentioning two former goalkeepers winning this award in Alex McCarthy and Ali Al Habsi, and I think he's in that kind of company and deserves to be in that list. Mark, anyone else worthy of just a little nod before you give your vote?
Yeah, honourable mentions to Mbenge and Bindon for me. Obviously not with us for the second half of the year, but for the first half, we've really, and we'll talk about most missed player shortly, but their impact has really been felt by their absence in the second half of the calendar year. But no, my vote is for Pereira, best keeper in the league. It's as simple as that for me.
Excellent. It is a clean sweep then for Joel Pereira. A nomination as well. I think Lewis Wing deserves a little bit of a nod as well again for his whole year performance. Yeah, it's been a little bit maybe down towards the start of this season, but again, in terms of actual goal contribution stuff, he's got to be right up there with anybody.
He reminds me more and more of a pickup player every single year, whereby maybe he'll drop an assignment, not run to a place that you want him to, but then he'll score a goal that nobody else on the field can score. And that'll just be that for the rest of the game.
Exactly. Right. From Player of the Year, so congratulations, Joel Pereira. Let's move on to Most Improved. Mark, who has won this award previously?
So you'll see some symmetry here between the Most Improved and the following season's Player of the Year. Jordan Abita won it in 2013, Jake Cooper 2014, Nick Blackman 2015, Gareth McCleary won it in 2016, Liam Kelly, Yaku Meite and John Swift the following 3 years. Omar Richards, what happened to him? Most Improved Player 2021. Luke Southwood, and then Tom Holmes was the 2022 winner. Last year, it was a certain Joel Pereira.
Excellent. And Mark, I'll start with you then this time around. Who would you be voting for? In fact, before I get to you, I should say as well, so Sim has voted for Charlie Savage, clearly trying to impress Ben. And Adam voted for Jaden Wareham. So Mark, who gets your nod?
This is a hard one because one of the big criticisms of Noel Hunt's tenure, and it's not massively changed under Richardson, although obviously there has been various changes we've already discussed, was that under Hunt there was a lack of progress for a lot of young players. You could even say from January to December, which particularly young players are definitively better than they were in January, and it's really hard to say for sure which ones have. I've gone for Daniel Cheever. I think his improvement has come after a bit of a quiet start. Not that anyone wasn't expecting a bit of a quiet start. It was pretty inevitable for a player that had always played in Germany, coming over to England, a team that had been put together several different times over the last couple of years. But he's settled now. Since Blackpool, he's been our best attacker. That Blackpool game, he absolutely rinsed their right back. It was just a joy to watch. It really was. And I remember, I think we said this in the Tilehurst group chat when we signed him. Either he was going to be a player that played 15 times for Reading, never scored a goal, and just got forgotten about into the kind of Omar Daly's annals of history, or he was going to be an absolute steal from nowhere. And luckily, I think we're moving on to the latter at the moment.
Yeah, he's very much reminding me of the early times of Jimmy Kebe's Reading career. You know, he signed for us in the back end of that Premier League relegation season, and even in 08-09 was very inconsistent. And then it clicked as much as it was ever going to click with Jimmy, because he was, he obviously had his flaws right through to the end. But I'm hoping he can live up to that Special K nickname and carry on. So Special K is your nomination. Ben, who are you going for most improved?
It's going to be absolutely no surprise to anyone that I'm picking Charlie Savage. I think one of the frustrations under Sellers was that there was some players that he just didn't trust and still trust in. I think Charlie Savage was a victim of that, really, in terms of being quite harshly treated alongside other players where they'd make a mistake and they're potentially not playing the next game or they'd be subbed or whatever. I think under Noel Hunt, Savage really flourished in that position and made it his own, and he was allowed to kind of express himself as a young player, which he still is, and make mistakes and develop. And I think, as much as I criticise Liam for the way in which he doesn't allow Lewis Wing and Charlie Savage to get in front of the ball and get on the ball and transition it and move it forward, I still think Savage is one of the first names on the team sheet for me. Alongside Pereira, alongside Wing, alongside Jack Marriott. And if you look at the progress that he's made in a year, it's been phenomenal, really. I don't know what he's done to Craig Bellamy to not be involved in the Welsh squads, or at least in the training squads that they have. But, we are where we are, and we get to enjoy him a little bit longer. And a little bit like Pereira, I don't see, Savage being a Reading player for a lot longer. I just think he's come on a lot, and at times he think he's very, very underrated by the footballing world, but also our fan base as well. To be honest, they just expect him to have that energy and to pop up with assists here and there and goals and stuff. So for me, he's 100% the most improved player that we've had.
Yeah, and again, if you go by player ratings, he is up on last year, so does fulfil the criteria. Ross, who are you going for?
I thought long and hard about Savage and frustratingly Wareham as well, because I feel like Wareham was potentially the player that Hunt managed to actually put his arm around and bring along with him. I think that Ben I can totally see what Ben's getting at with Savage too. I think that the style or lack thereof of a style that Noel was playing kind of played into Savage's hands at times, because he does have a great left foot and he's able to find people with long balls, with crosses all the time, and Noel's style just had a lot more of that going on than it did getting the ball down and playing. The person I've gone through, though, is Jeriel Dorset. I think that Dorset has gone from a maybe not to, okay, he's probably a solid lower EFL defender now. I think that there's still a lot of room for him to grow. I think that especially when he's playing as a left back rather, in a back four, he has limitations. But a lot of the time now when he's being used as a left back, he's being used as an elbow back, and he's kind of, coming into a back three in possession. And I just think that he's showing a lot of tactical maturity. I think that his 1v1 defending is exceptional. His ability to step across a player if they try and come inside of him is really, really good. And I think that as the course of the season has gone on, and we've played a little bit more in a back three, a back five, or, we've experimented with different shapes, he's gotten a lot better at defending the space in behind himself. And you'll often see kind of issues when, he has a wing back who's maybe not doing their job on the other side of him, rather than it being Dorset himself. So look, there's still room for him to grow. But I think that while it hasn't been a big flashy year from him, he's had injury troubles and he's come back, and I'd say he's continued to improve as a player. So yeah, Dorset.
I like it. Now, I'm unfortunately going to have to create a tie situation, because I am going to vote for Jayden Wareham, because Jayden Wareham, at the start of this year, I was comparing him to Paul Brayson, and that is going well back as one of the worst Reading strikers I've ever seen. And I really thought this guy is just nothing. And how he stepped in for Sam Smith and just kept that momentum going, the fight, the heart, and also the quality at times as well, I thought, was remarkable. I will hold my hands up when I'm wrong, and I was 100% wrong on Jayden's ability. And all he needed was that trust and to get a run of games. So I do think, if you look at someone from January, okay, yeah, he left us in May, but for those 5 months, came on leaps and bounds. Whereas for Savage, I absolutely take Ben's point, but to me, it's a bit of a small kind of incremental gain. However, we have got a tie. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mark as the tiebreaker because you didn't vote for either. So who would you give it to out of Jaden Wareham and Charlie Savage?
God, there's so many. The problem is with Savage is that I think he's playing at the level more or less that he was already playing at in Jan, which was a high level. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see a player that is massively better. Whereas Wareham he scored. I just add it up. He scored like 7 or 8 goals this year for Exeter. A bit of a weird one. If you Google Jaden Wareham, usually you'd expect like Exeter or Reading or whatever to be the first name, to the first word after. It's his dad. It's the first thing that people Google after Jaden Wareham.
Should we say that for comedy moment?
Yeah, we won't. You can find out for yourself, dear viewer. I think the case for Wareham is really good because it is absolutely true, and I agree with Wim. I also, when Smith left on deadline day of January, it was, well, that's the season gone. And he kept it going. He did do really well. I still don't think I've not watched him really for Exeter. I still don't necessarily think he's better than a League One striker, but I thought he was a National League striker when he took over that mantle. So, yeah, fair enough. I'll give it to Jaden Wareham.
Well, congratulations to Jaden Wareham then. And by not voting for Savage, we've ensured that we won't be getting a visit next Christmas from Ben. Coal will be in our stockings. So
I was going to say, the only reason you two are is because we messed it up the last 2 years. The first year we didn't even do the awards, and the second year we forgot to actually announce who'd won it. So I'm really grateful that you're here because we'd just be going through the process again, really. Ross would be talking about XG awards. I'd be talking about players that aren't in the Welsh squad. It would be just an absolute mess. So I'm very, even though you've chosen the wrong player for most improved, I'm very, very grateful that you're here. Put it that way.
Well, look, we bring that unprofessional joke of podcasting experience to this very show. So we'll continue to do our best. Let's move on to further anger Ben. I know he's got a problem with the naming of this award, but I'm going to stick by it. The Hal Robson Kanu Underachiever Award. Mark, so named because he won the award in back-to-back years in the early days of these here awards.
Yeah, and I think we might have said at the time that if a player wins it more than twice, they get it or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was because it did very nearly get taken off his hands at one point. Hal Robson Kanu won this award in 2013 and 2014. Jordan Apita, who's been mentioned a lot actually, went from most improved to player of the year to then underachiever of the year 2015. So proper roller coaster. Jake Cooper, who was also the most improved player 2014, was then the underachiever in 2016. Sonia Luco, 17 and 18, I think he came closest to nicking that honour of the award. And George Puskas has also won it twice in 2019 and 21. Danny Loader won it in 2020, Ovia Jari at 2022. And then last season, it was Sam Hutchinson who took home the Hal Robson Kanu Underachiever Award.
Do you want to know what unites Loader and Jake Cooper in that list?
Go for it.
I've watched both of them play a match of football in the last month. And it was very interesting with both of them. So Jake Cooper, not a bad midfielder still. He's a Cadillac of a passing machine.
Well, Cooper won that award off the back of basically being, disposed of by Yaps. I can't remember what game it was, but he played one game early that season, and it was just absolutely horrible. And he basically didn't fit Istanbul and got sent out. And then, I think within sort of 18 months, he was being linked with multi-million-pound moves to Rangers and stuff, and has obviously had a fantastic career at a certain, championship level since. So I'm going to start with you, Ben, for this time around, because I know you want to get this award off of Hal Robson Kanu's hands. Anybody, who would you be putting forward for this one?
I mean, there's a lot. You could look at off the pitch, and you could talk about Noel Hunt potentially being the underachiever. You could talk about, other people that we won't mention that are kind of still lingering around the club that could be in line with that as well. So there's a number of people off the pitch that you could go, you can have that. I think for me, and it's through no fault of his own, but Andy Yeardom, was obviously club captain and being part of that leadership group. Obviously, he's picked up a little bit in recent weeks, but he's had a very torrid 2025. And when we needed, leadership and we needed people around, yes, he is a nice guy, but he's not played at all. And then whether or not that's conditioning, whether or not that's an age thing, it's very, very difficult to at times see why he was given an extra contract or an extension of a contract of a year in the summer, given what had happened previously. And we've had reservations on this pod and in articles and discussions generally around his leadership qualities that go all the way back to Peterborough, ironically, when he had to get off the coach and ask the Reading fans to move. That was probably the most leadership we've seen from him. So for me, as much as I've wanted him to kind of kick on and be the player that we always wanted him to be, this year has not been a good one for him for a number of reasons. So I would have to say, because of the position that he holds and maybe the calibre that he has in the dressing room, certainly publicly, he would be my underachiever of 2025.
Ross, who are you going for?
This feels like the stick the boot in award sometimes. It feels a bit mean. But I'm going to stick the boot in on Mamadi Kamara. Mamadi Kamara is 21 years old. It feels like he's starting to get the Femi Aziz just before he broke out treatment. I feel like where it's like, come on, mate, you've been around for a while now. Like, do something. He came back in the game last night, or he got his first start under Liam in the game against the Posh last night. And I don't think I registered him doing just about anything in the entire game. He made one pass into and one pass from Peterborough's half in the entire match. And I think it's really, really tough with him that he just hasn't defined anything that exceptional that he does. He had that kind of like weird streak where he showed up with a few nice half-volleyed goals, and so maybe he's a decent finisher. But it's just so rare that he actually is able to do enough, string together enough pieces of decent technique to actually get to where he needs to go in the first place. And I just think that time's kind of run out for Kamara now. So if I was able to move him on in January to make room, which is something that I think Liam wants to do, then he would be quite high up on my list of players to move on. And yeah, again, it kind of feels mean. It's kind of the stick the boot in award, but it's been long enough, Mamadi. Time to put up or shut up.
Well, to ease your conscience on this, I think it's fair to say, and why this award is named after Hal Robson Kanu isn't because it's not the most rubbish player award. It is very much they're not hitting their potential. And the reason Robson Kanu won it in the early days is because we'd seen the brilliant stuff that he was capable of, in that final few months under Nigel Atkins in the Premier League, those goals at Fulham, and obviously what he went on to do with that goal for Wales, I think, days after his Reading contract expired, I think just about summed up his entire career. And I think Kamara, again, we have seen those brief flashes of excellence from him. Although I do love the fact that, again, I'm sort of looking through on who scored. And in each of the last 3 seasons, his average rating is 6.35 exactly. So he's at least been consistent. According to the metrics.
Is that just the average that you get for coming off the bench? Is that just what it starts at?
But that's including over 1,600 minutes last season and 6.35 and 300 minutes this year and exactly the same. Okay, so we've got a vote for Kamara. We've got a vote for Andy Yeardom. Mark, who are you putting on the list?
Yeah, this was the opposite of the most improved. This had loads of options, didn't it? And the reason I've not gone for Kamara, the reason also why I've not gone for Kelvin A. Batcherman is because I think that these are players that I personally don't think have potential to be championship players, or certainly not Kelvin when he came into the team. I think that's why they've not got it from me. Players that could have it, I think Matty Jacob could have it. I think Mark O'Mahony could have it. I think Matt Ritchie could have it. But I'm going to give it to Paddy Lane. 1 goal, 1 assist in 17 games. 18 months ago, less than that when he signed for Reading, he was smashing League One. His confidence, yes, is in the gutter. This probably won't help. Sorry, Paddy. Still up the green. But he's missed a couple of sitters that could have turned it round and arguably could have saved Noel Hunt's job. But this is a player who, when Reading signed him, it was a kind of, okay, we're back now. We're back to signing genuine players. We're back to proper moving forward. He was 23, 24, so it wasn't like a has-been. He'd done it before. He cost a bit of money. Was he our first player that we signed for a fee in several years? I think he was in that ballpark at the very least, if he wasn't the first. So I think that, and yes, he has been injured a bit lately, which you can't hold against him, and I'm not entirely sure he was fit when he came, but as a player who hasn't fulfilled his potential at the club, I think he's the number one for me.
Yeah, I was very tempted to give him my vote as well. Again, just when you saw that fantastic goal he scored, who did he score the winner against? It was
Port Vale.
And you just thought, oh wow, just that moment of sheer quality, and then he missed the absolute sitter a couple of weeks later, and I could very easily give it to Paddy Lane. Just before I give my vote, though, I will say Sim voted for Kamari Doyle, and Adam voted for Marco Mani. So we very much have a five-way tie at the moment. And I'm going to make it a kind of a six-way tie because Ben mentioned it. I have to say it's Noel Hunt because he's riding such a wave of positivity going into this season. And he didn't have to, I don't feel like he had to do much to keep his job. I really don't think he had to do much. He just had to have us bobbling around where we are now, kind of 10th, 12th, and you could say, okay, he needs time, but there was just nothing there. And the very fact that we're sitting here talking about the fact that there were so few players that improved over the year, I think is that real mark against Noel Hunt. And I mean, there were always the doubts about his managerial acumen, but I just felt that he could have been doing so much more. So we do unfortunately have a six-way tie. So this time, I will.
Has this ever happened before for HRK? I think we usually put unanimous, aren't we?
This is what I was thinking. Like, it's a massive blight on the club and a real yardstick for where we've been. We've managed to come up with maybe 3 tops for most improved, 2 only really in the running for that, and now we've come up with 6 or 7 different ones for the same award. Like, that's frightening, isn't it, really?
I feel like there's been a standout in previous years, though. Yes. Like, Sam Hutchinson existed a few years ago, so it had to be given to him. You know.
Well, I think
I agree with what Marc said.
8-9 points. We're 8-9 points worse off than we were last year.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. It's that start was really, really nasty. So
Ross, I will give you the tiebreaker.
Oh, I get the tiebreaker for the under.
Andy Yiadom, Mamdi Kamara, Paddy Lane, Kamari Doyle, Noel Hunt, or Marco Mani. You can stick with your original decision, or you can change.
I think there's an obvious answer here, and I think we have to just say it, and it's Noel Hunt, unfortunately. I think that Noel had all the tools that he needed to get into the playoffs last year. I completely agree, and I'll get onto it, that losing Sam Smith was a huge deal. But I think that there were more than enough tools to make the playoffs. He had the best midfielder in the division. He had Joel Pereira, the best goalkeeper in the division, playing out of his skin. And he turned us into a team that had to win games by 1 goal. And the last game in the Sellers era was Reading 3, Cambridge 0, which just kind of shows you what happened to the goal scoring immediately. So I unfortunately have to go with Noel Hunt.
Well, as a former teammate of Hal Robson Kanu, it only feels fitting that Noel does win the award.
First coach? Is that the first coach to win it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, usually our managers are just they're just so brilliant, aren't they? So
yeah.
Mark Bowen, not on the list of winners. Okay, so commiserations, I suppose, to Noel for winning the Hal Robson Kanu Award. The good thing is for him, he won't win it next year. So if there is a silver lining for Noel. Right, we're going to move on to Golden Moment, which I think is pretty obvious as to which will win it this year. But Mark, just remind us of some of the previous winners in this category.
So this was actually introduced a little bit later. So we start in 2014 with the Academy success story of 2014. We beat Bradford in the FA Cup quarterfinals in 2015. We beat West Brom in the FA Cup 16 in 2016. Piazon with a clincher was the golden moment. We beat Fulham in the playoffs in 2017. Vitor Manone, I've forgotten his first name for a second now. Was the penalty? He saved a penalty against QPR in 2018. I think that Paul Clement's first game. That he saved the penalty in the last minute.
Was it the game that Aluko scored that worldie and basically helped keep us up, or was that a bit later?
Oh God, now you really are testing my memory for Aluko worldies. You'd think it would stand out, wouldn't you? But yeah, so that was 2018. Come back against Wigan in 2019. Was it Mo Barrow and Yaku Mete scored really late on, didn't they? That basically kept us up.
Or was the Wigan comeback? Oh wait, I think you might be right. I might be mixing it up with the Pushkas hat trick in my head against Wigan.
God, yeah. So that actually didn't win golden moment. I'm surprised by that. 2020 fans returning from the pandemic against Nottingham Forest. I think Ben, you were on Sky that day, weren't you? Reading 3, Bournemouth 1 in 2021. When we actually thought we might get promoted to the Premier League. And then in 2022, Tom McIntyre scoring a late winner at the aforementioned Sheffield United away game, which basically, again, another moment that kept us up. And then 2024, it was keeping Bearwood from mean old Rob Coig. What happened to him?
Love.
He did get it in the end. Does that mean that is... I guess that's a
golden.
Of
course, we won't open this Pandora's box right now, but did he?
Cliffhanger for next year's awards.
There's so much we can say on that, but we'll park that for another day.
Certainly could be in the underachiever category next season, depending on how things go. Yes, that QPR was Sonny Aluko with a wonder strike and Vito Manone saving the penalty to basically keep us up after Paul Clement's first game in charge. But look, I think there's only one winner for this, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, the day that I was allowed to commentate on the team at Lincoln was honestly unreal. It was a good dream come true, and
this is golden, not comedy.
Thanks to everyone who put me there. No, I'm joking. I think that day in May was just a blur, really, because obviously the news broke on the Saturday morning of the game. I can't even remember who we were playing, which is absolutely. It was Blackpool, wasn't it? Was it Blackpool?
Was it last game of the Barnsley game? Barnsley, yeah.
Barnsley, yeah.
Whoever it was, actually, I can't even remember. The game was irrelevant. And, at that point, we still had a chance to make playoffs mathematically. But the fact that the club had been officially signed over to Rob and we'd had so many kind of false dawns and, it might happen, we're in this period of exclusivity and that expired and all these different statements. It just felt like such a relief, and the fact that the stadium was pretty much full that day as well. The sun was out. It was just an incredible day, absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those rare occasions where the football and the result was secondary to what was going on off the pitch. Ross, I think you got up at like 4:30 to do a pod with me in the morning. It was just a crazy day, and it really was a very, very proud moment to be able to host the podcast, but also just be part of it on the day and just go to the stadium and kind of, I very briefly met Todd Trosclair, as a lot of people did that day, and had a photo with him. And it was just a really proud moment, having been through all the stuff that we've been through over the last few years, to have that sense of relief and not have to worry about the immediate future of the football club off the pitch, and know that we would be kind of, in theory, secure for another couple of seasons. So, yeah, 100% for me, it's the golden moment when the club was officially signed over to Rob and Todd.
Yeah.
Look. Did you ask Todd for the photo, or did Todd ask you for the photo?
Well, it's a good. I actually gave him one of your business cards as well, Mark. I gave him a Tilehurst business card, and he went, "Oh, thanks," and just put it in his pocket, but probably chucked it. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't miss him. He's huge. Like, he's really, really tall, big American guy, probably the most American person I've ever met in my life, aside from Ross. So, he was great, and it was a great day. Really, really fantastic day.
Well, I don't think as great as it was, I'm aware of time, so we won't linger on it. So the takeover wins it again. Sim and Adam both voting for the takeover as well. So
Can I give you my one? I know we will move on. This my one runner-up for this.
Go for it.
Was Jack Marriott's 5-game scoring streak as soon as he started his Reading career, because we were moaning about the striker problem and the lack thereof all summer. And to the point where I got like, maybe we don't need a striker, because that's what tactics nerds do when they've had too much time to think about something. And then a real striker came in and immediately started playing like one. That was fun. I've enjoyed Jack Marriott since he came in.
And I'll just really quickly, I'll throw in the 2-0 win over Wrexham as well in the spring. Was a really good win and a really good game.
Yeah,
good one. Yeah,
very worthy nominees. Right, the takeover wins the golden moment. So from the very good to the very bad, let's go for the worst moment of the year. Mark, what bad memories are you going to dig up for us now?
So in 2014, we lost 6-1 to Birmingham. I'm sure there's people listening to this who were at St Andrews that day and are currently having miserable flashbacks. In 2015, Arsenal scoring the extra time winner through Adam Federici in the FA Cup semi-final. 2016, how we handled Brian McDermott's sacking. Liam Moore missing the penalty in the player final of 2017. We lost 4-0 to Ipswich in 2018 and 4-1 to Fulham in 2019, and then 3-0 to Wigan in 2020. In 2021, we had a 6-point deduction, and then 2022, a defeat to non-league Kidderminster in the FA Cup. Last season, the honour went to the women's team collapsing from obviously being a professional team in the top flight to now being a semi-pro team in the lower rungs of the ladder.
I want to clarify that I'm not laughing at the women's team collapsing. I'm laughing at the fact that the Kidderminster loss is in there. That's before we got used to just losing to non-league teams.
Mark's write-up from the article the last time the awards were published says, defeat to Kidderminster FA Cup. Saddest of all, it wasn't even that much of a shock. So that was during a very, very bleak time as Pauno's era wound down. For worst moment, Sim has said it's hard to pinpoint one, but basically the various false dawns around the takeover, so the various bids falling apart. And Adam has gone for the Carlisle home defeat in the FA Cup. Ross, I'll start with you this time. What is your worst moment of 2025 for Reading?
Selling Sam Smith to a direct playoff competitor, because it was kind of the we still can't have nice things moment in the last owner's tenure. Basically, it was still very much a, I think that there was talk about whether that funding was going to be used to basically fund the club and things like that as well, and it kind of just had me in that sense of like, even when we're playing well, even when at that time Noel looked like he was going to be able to keep things going pretty well, we were obviously seriously disadvantaged because of our ownership situation. So the fact that we had to sell Smith directly to a player who were, to a team that was competing with us for the playoffs, and obviously eventually got promoted with Smith playing pretty well for them, though not so much in the championship. That was probably the worst moment for me.
Mark, who are you going to go for? Or what are you going to go for, shall I say?
My honourable mention is actually Sam Smith leaving on deadline day. So if we need a tiebreaker, we can throw that in. The Swindon defeat in the Virtue Trophy is my other honourable mention, because actually the atmosphere of that game when we were 2-0 down was really horrid for what was ultimately 20 minutes into a youth team game. I thought that our fans did not, we can debate over whether they turned up for a football game or to have a shout at some Swindon fans, but I wasn't delighted with that as a situation, and then obviously we lost the game, which sucked. My worst moment is actually Nohan's sacking, not because I thought it was the wrong decision, I thought it was the right decision, but at the start of the season we do our little Tyler said predictions, and I said in mine that I feared the fans turning against Noel, because I always thought the start of the season was going to be harder than we expected it to be. And I feared that he was going to be the fall guy for it, and that is how it turned out. Some fans aren't too fussed with his past achievements. Some weren't even around for when he was a player. All the rest of it, that's totally fair enough. However, I love him, and I think he's a great football man, and I really wanted him to succeed. I really did. There's not been a manager that I wanted to succeed as much as Noel Hunt for probably since McDermott, and we just added the handling of his sacking in 2016, probably since then. So the way that we unfortunately had to say goodbye to Noel. I really wanted it to work out for him, and unfortunately it didn't. So that's my worst moment of the year.
And Ben, what are you going for?
I think cancelling the Winter Wonderland at the game against Luton because of weather was up there for me. Like I was building my whole festive period around that. So to see that disappear was disgusting. I think there's been a few like the Swindon game I wasn't at, but I would agree with Mark that I think the reaction to that, or rather the overreaction, was completely over the top, and I don't think it's done any favours to those young players that were involved in that. I don't think they've really kicked on or recovered from that since, personally, or been allowed to rather. But I think on the pitch, the Carlisle game was an absolute debacle. It was just a shambles, really, given the timings of the goals and the way that the game was kind of set up to be structured. It should have been a great first experience, a great first win for Liam, and I love the FA Cup anyway. Like I absolutely love cup competitions, and to see us go out in that way was really galling. So there were a few off the pitch that I could mention, but on the pitch, 100% it's got to be the Carlisle game.
I know it's your vote, and I know that someone else mentioned the Carlisle too, and I know I said this last week as well, so it's just me being facetious now. I still just don't think the Carlisle loss was that bad. I might just be getting used to losing to non-league teams at this point, but I've never seen a win that was more the fault of the previous manager and one or two individual player mistakes in my life. Odd game, but structurally it never bothered me.
Yeah, I think it's just that embarrassment factor. I think is what makes it so bad. Look, I had a few nominees. I think off the pitch, the whole saga with the court case that was going on, that looked like Coig might end up being a villain again. Because while the court case was going on, it was said that was what was blocking a sale of the club, and you were getting down to those horrible feelings of, as Sim went, with his vote with takeover bids collapsing, you did have that sinking feeling of, is my football club going to exist? And I never ever want to feel that again. If you look on the pitch, I think it was probably about a 20-minute period where at one point we were 6 points ahead of Leyton Orient in the playoff race. Or I think, no, we might have been 4 points ahead, and if we'd scored against Lincoln, it would have been 6. And I distinctly remember Tim Della talking about, we could be 6 points clear at the end of this game. And then Leyton Orient came back from something stupid against Barnsley, and we chucked a goal away. And that was it. We surrendered the advantage and never got it back. So
they suddenly developed the ability to score 4 goals whenever they needed to in the last season. It was very frustrating.
It was. They won 18 in a row, then lost 12 in a row, then won their last 33 or something. Wasn't it mad like that?
Yeah. So, but my official vote will be for the court cases and takeover bids collapsing, which does make it a tie between the takeover and Carlisle. So Ben, you have the tiebreaker this time.
Not Carlisle. Wasn't that bad. Matty Jacobs gone now. He can't hurt you anymore.
all the takeover stuff is a bit of a blur. And I think if we're looking for a moment, it was kind of that whole month of January, to be honest. Like, it was just horrendous.
Right, but that's not the tie that you're breaking.
No, so takeover uncertainty, I think,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was probably more significant than losing to a non-league team in the Cup. I mean, it's, don't get me wrong, still up there for me, but yeah, I would say the overall uncertainty of the takeover.
You can also vote for Noel Hunt sacking or selling Sam Smith.
Nah, I'd go for the takeover uncertainty, to be honest, as a general
we'll go for that. Yeah, I think we'll...
Sure.
You can pinpoint it on when the EFL were like, you've got 30 days to sell or we're liquidating the club. And obviously they were using that as a tactic. But
didn't they fine Dai Yong like 20 grand or something?
Yeah.
Something like that, which is essentially a registration fee for him, right?
Yeah, they disqualified him as an owner, didn't they? And that set the clock going. So I think we just say, the general uncertainty around the takeover is the worst moment of the year. moving on, we're going to have to quickly rattle through some of these. The next one is comedy moment. Mark, you can make us smile now with some of these.
Right, okay. So in 2014, we invaded the pitch against Burnley, having not got into the playoffs. In 2015, Lady Sassima released a song in front of a bunch of Leeds fans. In 2016, Hal Robson Kanu scored one of the most stupid goals ever against Belgium from a Reading perspective. From 2017, Lucas Piazon trolled us badly. 2018, Ipswich scored from our own corner. I think it took about 6 seconds from the corner being taken to them scoring. Mark Bowen's appointment in 2019, having just sacked the previous manager. In 2020, a bloke called Eye of Timbe turned up in Kenya, and everyone went crazy for it if you're from Kenya.
Wow,
and in 2021, Da Yong was filmed running on the pitch. And then in 2022, there was a bit of a meme after we scored saying, "You've just been Paul Inst." That was our comedy moment for that. And then last season, Wickham being denied Bearwood by a council technicality.
Love the council. Love the council. Well, I loved the council in that moment anyway. Right, comedy moment. Mark, let's start with you. Any nominees?
Yeah, so honourable mention, Ashkar Ahmed dominating Spurs in a friendly and also getting knocked out of the Virtue Trophy despite having won 2 of our 3 games, which also happened on my birthday. So that was a bit of a comedy moment for myself at the very least. Mine is funny enough the Carlisle FA Cup defeat, which we don't need to dwell on too much. I'm kind of with Ross on this. It summed up everything wrong with the team at that point, but was also so stupid you had to laugh. I think we needed it. I think we benefited from it. Liam Richardson said after the game, "I didn't learn anything because this has just proven all the stuff I knew already." He said the same after the Bradford game, and everyone got really annoyed at him. But I agree with him. He did not need to know that we were bad to have the Carlisle Cup defeat prove that. It was just fact. And it proved that. And for me, it was just a silly moment.
Okay. Ben, comedy moment for you?
I think it's got to be Liam Richardson's wife announced on Twitter that he was a Reading manager before the club did. That was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So that for me is the comedy moment for sure. That and this whole podcast, to be honest, it's just a joke.
Absolute
Cod past.
Yeah, absolute cod past. I'm a professional joker for cod past. Ross, comedy moment for you?
Spicy on the club comms during a game. Very,
Excellent.
very funny. Actual TTE podcast jokes on the comms. The comedy moment of the year for sure. Oh, and one other quick one. Tiv Rashisha giving away the Randall Williams and Rinamata signing on his TikTok a good week before they announced either of those players.
Yeah, Sim doesn't know his comedy moment, and I'm with him as well. I struggled to think of a comedy moment this year, but Adam went for the if Bowden scores were on the pitch, and then he did score, and then it was disallowed. So for again, not a overall, but as I've not voted, I will pick. I'll go for Liam Richardson's wife breaking news of his appointment on the tie.
Yeah, I'll give that.
So there we go. Right, moving swiftly on to again one that no end of nominees. The most missed award, Mark. Who won this previously?
Yeah, this was formerly named after Pavel Pogrebniak. I'm not entirely sure how we came to that conclusion, but it was once known as that. I don't think it is anymore. 2015, it was Adam Federici. 2016, Aaron Tish-Bowler. Danny Williams in 2017. Jordan Abita. 4 awards he's won in previous years. 2018, what a proper rollercoaster of a.
Just named the whole awards after him.
It's like what do they call it? In WWE, it's like you're a Triple Crown champion, isn't it, Ben? I think Jordan Obita's got like all of the belts in TTE history.
Improved player of the year. Crap, then we missed him. So that's a pretty subtle way of us thinking. 2019, Lewis Baker. Lucas Zhao in 2020 and 2021. I think one of those was for injury, wasn't it? And then maybe the other one. Maybe they both were. 2022 was John Swift. Felipe Araruna was nominated in 2022. And I can't even...
I was going to say, but I know who nominated him that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute weird tangent. But when I was trying to find the dodgy stream for the Peterborough game because it wasn't on Sky or the club TV, I went on to whatever crappy website link it was, and there was like a placeholder image for Reading FC, and it was Felipe Araruna. And I was like, how the hell has this happened? But anyway, 24, Femi Aziz. was the most missed player for 2024.
Who are you voting for then this year, Mark?
I think Aziz is actually a really good shout, but I'm going to give it to Mbenge for obvious reasons.
Fair enough. I should say Sim has voted for Mbenge, as has Adam. So we've already got 3 votes for Mbenge. Ross, are you going to hand him the award here, or are you going to
I'll hand Mbenge the award, yeah. Okay. It was always going to come from the centre-back partnership, and I love Tyler Bindon. I still love Tyler Bindon, even if he is wetting himself for Sheffield United on the regular now. But it's got to be Amadou Mbenge, because there is just nobody running the ball out of defence for Reading at the moment.
Ben, would you be voting for Mbenge, or have you got somebody else?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's incredible how much we've missed him, really. And when you look at the central defenders that we do have now, to a point they're good defensively, but there's no passing out of the back at all now. There's no ball carrying. There's no transitions from either of them. So for me, Mbenge 100%. And the fact he's gone to QPR makes it even more galling, to be honest.
Yeah, it's never nice seeing him in the fake hoops, as they say. Exactly. I will actually.
They play him at right back as well.
Yeah, he scored the other day as well.
That's where he started with us,
he did.
Isn't it?
Right
back. Yeah, and was great. I remember a 0-0 against Luton where Andy Carroll concussed somebody, which you could say that about a lot of different games. But where Mbenge was, because obviously you're so close to the pitch at Luton, and that was just where I realised, this guy's an absolute physical monster. And I think that we are just so willing to just kick the ball out of defence and chase and do that now. Having Mbenge in this team, I think he would be the person who would change the trajectory of the team the most from the players who left last season right now.
Yeah, I did vote for Harvey Nibbs. I just think, again, he was that kind of attacking catalyst and was the person, putting those pressure penalties away, and just seemed to have that knack of doing something when we really needed it in the final third. I
think he made our midfield work.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
But yeah, I can't really vote against Mbenge, although I will give my vote to Nibbs because it doesn't matter. But Amadou Mbenge wins the most missed award. Final one then, and this is the Breakout Prediction Award. And Mark, this one's been hit and miss, let's say, over the years.
Yeah, we've got a checkered past for this one. It started in 2013, and I bet you if it started in
very missed this one, I tell you.
Yeah, like you said, hit and misses. I was like, oh, what hits are those then?
There's a guy who was nominated for the Ballon d'Or, I'll have you know, in this breakout.
Good
prediction.
point. I stand
Louis
corrected.
Osman. Louis Osman is nominated for the Ballon d'Or. Okay, interesting.
You know what? There have been 12 breakout prediction tips. There 13 presumably were 2023 been lost, but 3 of them were good. So 1 out of 4 is our hit detection. This award started in 2013. If it started in 2012, I have a pretty decent shout that it would have been Jordan Abita. Royston Drenthe, 2013, miss. Dominic Samuel, 2014, miss. Jonathan Bond, 2015, miss. Yaku Mate, 2016, hit. Omar Richards, 2017, hit. Danny Loader, 2018. I think that's probably a miss.
It's a mix.
We can debate that, but we won't. Michael Elise, 2019, hit. Dejan Tetek, 2020, miss. Femi Aziz, 2021. Maybe we've had 4 hits because Richards made yeah. John Clark, 22. That's a miss so far. Obviously, Louis Holzman, 2024. That is a miss because he's no longer with the club.
Yeah, I noticed that in the nominees for 2022, Nelson Abbey was on that list, along with Kian Levy, Rashawn Scott, Jay Senga, and John Clark. And of course, John Clark winning the award that year. Ben, let's start with you. Who's your breakout prediction for 2026?
I mean, there's a few. I'm doing this in a positive way. There's a few. I've watched a fair bit of under 18s and under 21s, and there's some good players in those teams. And I tried to say this to Ross the other day, and he went, "Yeah, but that's because they're only playing in the same age group," which was not very nice. Not very nice. Yeah. I think you're looking at deficiencies up top at the moment. And I think there are a number of players that I've seen this season in the youth setup that could potentially fill that moving forward. Whether or not it's in this part of the season, I don't know. Maybe we're looking for another pre-season out of them and moving to 26-27. But I really like Callum Fuller-Thompson in the under 18s. He is a phenomenal young player, very, very strong for his age group. knows where the goal is, very, very positive in that respect. So, he's one, but I think, someone who's closer to the first team, who has obviously come on and played for the first team in the Virtue Trophy, is Sean Patton. It's another one who's coming from the Irish bloodline. He looks good, and I think if we don't go out and sign, I agree with what Mark said around 2, potentially 3 attacking players. He could be the second or third one that we don't buy that's already at the club to fill in. So for me, I'd really like to see him kick on. The other one as well, from a defensive point of view, is Jacob Neptune, who again for under-18s is a very, very good player. But I'm going to go with Sean Patton for my breakout star this season, or this calendar year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I voted for Patton for the same reasons, and as has Adam as well. So he's got 3 votes. Sim has voted for Garcia. So Ross, with 3 votes for Patton and 1 for Garcia, who are you going for?
Well, I'm just going off the beaten track again. Unfortunately, he's 24 years old, so maybe this is too much. But I think, breakout again. I'm just interpreting this as maybe it's like the biggest improvement. Daniel Chirwa, I think, is a championship player at minimum. And I think that he'll start to show that as the year goes on and he gets more confidence and the team gets to the point where they know how to use him. In the last few weeks, we've seen as Chirwa had a couple of games where he scared the bejesus out of fullbacks and immediately got 2 men put on him in nearly every single game since. If you watch all of his dispossessions from the last few games, it's almost always the second person coming in to dispossess him. It's almost never the first person who is just there to try desperately to stop him from getting too deep into the box. I think that if Reading there's a world here where Reading just work out how to use the space that is generated from that and they don't throw more at him. But there's also a world where he gets even better at pushing past that kind of like one player and just really stretching teams. So I think Chirwa has the potential to be one of the best Reading wingers of a while. And I've been saying that he's on a 1-year contract for ages. Turns out I was completely incorrect about that, so sorry. But good news, we have Daniel Chirwa for 2 years. So even if he does really, really kick on in 2026, maybe we can get some cash for him next January. We'll see.
Excellent. So Patton has won the award, Mark, but who are you voting for anyway?
Yeah, I was just having a flick through, and I think part of the reason why this is a little bit difficult is because Reading's under-21 team is bottom of the Premier League 2, and Reading's under-18 team is 4th bottom of the Premier League South. So we're actually in a period where we haven't really got anyone who's kind of being heralded as, getting loads of goals and that sort of stuff. So in the lower levels. So I caveat by saying we are the only League One team that has a representation at that level. My player is Ashkar Ahmed. The logic behind this is it won't happen, but if we get a left wing back or someone that Richardson trusts more than Garcia in January, with Jacob going back to Hull, obviously, the idea then is that potentially Ahmed could be the kind of reserved right fullback, which lets the left player go on in the same way that a Brayford does when he plays at right wing back, and that would give Richardson a lot of flexibility. Ahmed is a very good defender. He's not so great going forward, but he is kind of right-ish, centre-back-ish as a prospect. And I think that could make us a lot more flexible, a lot more unpredictable if we get that left wing back. We won't see it probably anyway, but we won't see it unless we get that player that can balance the system, and potentially that's something that happens. So yeah, that's my logic behind going for Ashkar Ahmed.
Yeah, very worthy shout. And again, sometimes I think he struggled a little bit towards, obviously in the final days of Noel Hunt, but you certainly see the potential. And I know you voted for the comedy moment, that performance against Spurs, which was funny just because it was so outrageous that it was happening. So there's definitely a player in there. And hopefully it's one of those situations, a bit like maybe someone like a Nicky Shorey that came to us and was, not straight into the team, took a little while to settle in. So I'd love to see him break out. But that concludes the awards ceremony for 2025. I will pass all of these awards onto Sim to write up as an article, because he needs to play a part in this.
And they will be called the Obeaters next year moving forward.
I like it.
Seeing as he's won nearly every single one in there. Well, that's exciting. Thank you guys for giving us a rest throughout that. How has being back in the hosting chair been?
Do you know what? It's always really nice to be back on this show. It brings back great memories. I'm sure Mark does. I mean, I used to do it at my old house with 4 of us or 3 of us sat around an actual physical table. And just
doing Lego together.
Well, it's mostly me just sitting on the edge of my seat, hoping Westy wouldn't say something to get us cancelled, or worse. But it's great, and I love doing it. Unfortunately, I am just a gigantic plastic these days. And the way the 2 of you, I think I said this on my last appearance, 400. The way you 2 analyse the game and break it down, I think really just brings just something extra special, because you've got the fun stuff that we the unprofessional joke of a show that I certainly ran. Mark certainly professionalized it during a much tougher time, but I think it's that all-round contribution that the show has grown into that makes it a must listen. So thanks for having us old timers back on.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Maybe in the summer, Wim, or something, we can do an after dark hours version with get Westy back in and do a 3-man. Get the bleeper out.
Yeah, we had the reunion special a couple of years ago, where we got like Westy and Johnny and Ollie and everybody back. So maybe we'll dig that back out again. But I will just say as well, apologies for the lack of a podcast extra this season. I was due to do one with someone who no longer works in the media. You may remember him. I'm not going to mention his name. And I haven't got it back off the ground. And again, I don't think for the time being that it's adding much. Again, I think the best compliment I can give to Ross and Ben is the fact that they're covering it to such an extent that the podcast extra isn't needed. But should the need arise, I'll always pop back on.
It's very kind of you to say that we're covering things properly when Ben literally last week on the pod was like, so, Abby, if you want to come and do a podcast for us, trying to foist off parts of the coverage and then admit that we haven't done a proper preview in a year.
I set the bar very low for you, so it's not hard to cover stuff.
It's appreciated. Oh, man.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Honestly, I've really enjoyed being a guest on it, to be honest. It's been quite nice to be asked the questions and to chip in, and I think I would like to make it a yearly, well, not yearly, I mean obviously you're welcome back anytime you want, but in terms of the awards, we're never ever going to do it the justice that it needs. And I like the fact that you politely skipped over the fact that you hadn't listened to 2023 when we didn't even do an awards for 2023 because we just didn't register it at all. So I think it's a massively important part of tradition for TTE, and we're very, very happy for you guys moving forward to come on and do it, because
just to check really quickly, I don't have to edit this all together, do I?
No. I'll send you the WAV file right after this.
Oh, Audacity is no longer on my laptop, and it is a pleasurable existence.
I can imagine.
But yeah, look, it's been really, really enjoyable, and I think it rounds off hopefully what has been a fairly positive year for the Tilehurst end in general. I think it's grown in strength in terms of the articles, the exposure. We've had a lot of coverage from people in the press around the stuff that we do. Even today I kind of was just doing a bit of research and reminding myself of a few things that had happened, and the Tilehurst end came up as the number 1 hit to find out more information as a fan site, which might not seem like a great honour, but for us, and particularly for Wim and Mark before us, it's massive. We're not just a podcast. We do. There's so many articles and so many contributors that we have, and people that write for us, and it's all free. We're never going to ask for anything in return for it. It's there for you to enjoy, and it's a 100% a labour of love. And as long as there's Reading Football Club, I'm sure there'll be a Tilehurst end. So You know,
Indeed.
it's great to be part of it and great to be part of that journey. So thank you very
And
much.
even more important,
for
I was going to say, Ben, just to tie us out here, there'll always be a Tilehurst end, and there'll always be Tilehurst end listeners and readers. And thank you guys for another year of that, because it's been really, really great to see just kind of like the different things that you guys have engaged with. I hope you've had a fantastic holiday season already. I hope you have a really, really great new year. I hope that 2026 is a great year for you and your football club, because when you win in that regard, we all win. And specifically, Liam also wins. So let's head into 2026 on that vibe.
You close it out then, because I wasn't going to say anything like that at all. It's just cheesy nonsense.
Oh, you weren't? All right. Well, all right. Marc, thank you very much. Massively appreciate you being here. I'm sure we'll see you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm always slightly more southwestern than I used to be when I was in Reading, but yeah, I'm still getting to quite a few games these days. I'm still watching whenever the powers that be allow me to on TV as well, which is a hell of a lot more games on TV than when I used to do the podcast and not get into loads of the games then. So it's a lot easier actually for me to keep track of what's going on. But yeah, you'll always see me more these days in the singing section, Club 1871, isn't it? Than I was back in my northeast corner days. But yeah, you'll see me popping around the Mad Cell every so often these days.
Wim, thank you very much for being on with us.
No, thank you, gents. Said it makes me very, very happy that you two keep this going week in, week out. And I speak for myself and Marc. I'm two people that know how much effort goes into this show. That you take time, especially with the time difference for you as well, Ross. So yeah, thank you both. And look, it's over. We have got a game on New Year's Day. Hopefully we beat Burton. No Finley Burns though. Finn Burns is gone. So end it on a potential for most missed early nomination for next year.
Who earns for those Simpsons?
Finley Burns. After he gets back in the side and does quite well last night.
Yeah.
Man City won him back. Pep's obviously been impressed.
Wow. All right, guys. Let's close that thing.
If you can't say something nice,
come on, you Royals.